It was extreme devotion. So from about the time of 12 years old, I dedicated truly my life to music, composition, and guitar. So I was practicing at least 8 hours a day, and that's pretty much every day.
Welcome to the Spanish Guitar Mastermind, where we take a look at the journey of accomplished Spanish guitarists so that we can all learn from their daily habits, their mindset, and all the strategies that got them to where they are today. Today, I'm happy to welcome onto the show a powerhouse in contemporary Spanish guitar, both as a recording artist and also as a touring, performing live artist, Johannes Linstead. Welcome to the show, Johannes.
Thank you, my friend. Nice to see you.
Yeah, happy to have you on. And before we even start, just to be totally transparent with you, for the last several years, I've heard your name floating around in different groups, on playlists. My partner, Steve Edwards from Guitar Azul, he's mentioned you several times as well.
Yeah.
But your music was off of my radar just because sometimes you can't hear everybody's music. There's so many great artists out there.
Sure.
And it wasn't until last year that I was in the car and finally consciously said, I'm going to throw on some of your music. And on a nice long car drive, I was listening to your music and became a new fan. So
nice to hear. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, love the music. I love how you're a very melodic writer. So I connect a lot with that type of writing with a little flash still thrown in there, but a lot of nice emotive melodies. So very cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's also one of the reasons why I started up this podcast, is because I want to introduce some of my community or whoever's watching just to musicians who might have been off of their radar.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So just to start off, just like I like to start off with anybody, if they're not familiar with you, tell me a little bit about how you got into Spanish guitar, how you discovered Spanish guitar, what age, and was that your first genre, or was this something you later grew into?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, all I listened to was classical music, actually. And then, like my dad was always into, decorating the house with Spanish things like toreadors and things like that. So I always had a bit of the Spanish culture in the household. And then as I started guitars around 8 years old, of course, when you're 8 years old, you're not learning really any style. You're learning to play one note.
Right.
But eventually I progressed and got a little bit better. And I loved classical guitar. So of course, when you're learning classical guitar, you're always learning, music from the Spanish composers like Tárrega or Sor. And but I also did enjoy playing electric guitar. I got into jazz and many different styles. I just loved the instrument, so I wanted to absorb as many different techniques, different sounds, different styles, rhythms that I could possibly learn.
So you actually naturally connected with classical guitar. It wasn't something you were pushed into to start off with classical.
No, not at all. Even to this day, classical music is actually my favorite.
Okay. And then as you got along and tried experimented with different genres, is there how did you find your voice with the type of style that you record now, and that's more of your signature sound, that blend of Spanish guitar, that contemporary Latin rumba flamenca? Is there a reason like that you went down that path, or that you didn't go down to the traditional flamenco or more traditional classical guitar?
Yeah, there's a number of reasons. I guess in life, there's always outside external influences that push you in a certain direction, whether you realize it or not. So when I was in my teens, of course, I enjoyed a lot of the shred guitar players, because, when you're a guitar player, you want to shred, right?
Right.
That's what's part of the fun. So, learning shred from, guitar players like Randy Rhoads, Al Di Meola, Paco de Lucia. And then we would travel a lot. So I was always exposed to Caribbean and Cuban rhythms, Dominican rhythms. And as I got a little bit older, I discovered Strunz and Farah. They were using a pick, which I also enjoyed. I enjoyed playing with my fingers, doing the picados, but I also enjoyed playing with the pick. So when I saw them combining the music that I loved, which was Latin rhythms, with very fast guitar styles, it just worked out really well. Another thing that unfortunately pushed me more to the direction of playing more the Latin guitar rather than the flamenco was that I don't know if you really call it an injury, but I developed focal dystonia in my middle finger. prior to that, I mean, I was playing so fast with my fingers, and then all of a sudden, it's like, what happened? It's like this, all this technique just seemed to disappear. And I thought, was I not practicing enough? Because it was undiagnosed at the time. And then eventually I did get the diagnosis that I had focal dystonia. So I didn't really give up classical guitar entirely because I could still play a little bit, but I couldn't do anything too flashy with it. And I was actually learning flamenco guitar at the time, so I was starting to develop all those techniques. So having some of the flamenco techniques, having some of the pick techniques like the shred players, I ended up combining the two, and that's pretty much how I got my sound. And also with the influence of classical music, I always loved Mozart. Mozart is my favorite composer, and he had these very simple melodies that are just so catchy, easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But if you listen very closely, you realize there's so much depth and so
Mm-hmm.
much intricacies to it, with all the counterpoint and the orchestrations in the background.
Right.
So I do, even to this day, try to incorporate that sort of mindset into my compositions.
So it sounds like some of the guitarists that influenced you were all around the spectrum. So
Yeah,
from rock, metal to
definitely.
classical to to
Yeah,
Spanish guitar.
exactly.
But Strunz and Farah were the ones that first introduced you kind of into that style, or a little bit more into that direction.
I would say when I heard what they were doing with it, it was like, okay, yes, this feels really comfortable, because it really did encompass everything that I wanted to do, everything that I wanted to do as a guitar player, be able to play fast, have nice Latin rhythms, a bit of flamenco, and of course the melodicism, which is, as you mentioned earlier, is
Mm-hmm.
essential.
Yeah, and with the focal dystonia, I hear about that like affecting guitarists from all ends of the spectrum as well.
Mhm.
Is there a reason behind that? Do you know? I haven't investigated more farther into that. Do they have causes for that, or is it just genetic? Or
I think it's still somewhat of a mystery. It is a misery, but it's also
right?
a mystery. For me, I think what might have triggered it was I was also training heavily in Kung Fu.
Hmm.
And the style that I was learning was very physical and very damaging to the physical body.
Okay.
Um, like when I would go to the classes, I would be like, my hair would be pulled. I'd have black and blue all bruises all over my body, because we trained without any protective gear.
Hmm.
We trained in an old barn with a concrete floor. So if you fell, you fell hard. So there was a lot of pain involved. And I remember training with my teacher, and his body was like steel. Like, you might have heard of iron shirt kung fu, which you develop very dense bones, very hard muscles. And we were doing what's called forearm banging. So we were hitting our forearms like this, and he had hit me so hard right here, and I almost passed out. And I didn't even think that was possible, but I remember feeling really dizzy, and I think that actually might have triggered it. So in some cases, I think it might just develop. They do say that there could be some form of a trauma, whether
Okay.
it be emotional or physical. And I think that was my trigger for this, because it happened around at the same time.
That sounds like a risky sport to be a part of and be a guitarist.
Yeah,
It doesn't
I did
sound like
have
it
to
pairs
give it
too
up,
well.
but yeah, eventually.
Yeah. And just to kind of circle back to around that time, how were some of your habits and your routines to learn guitar? Well, did you have a methodical approach? Like since you started with classical, were you a little bit more structured, or was it a
Mhm.
little bit more all over the place?
Well, it was extreme devotion. So from the about the time of 12 years old, um, I dedicated truly my life to music, composition, and guitar. So I was practicing eight, at least 8 hours a day, and that's pretty much every day.
And how
I
long
remember,
did that phase last? Like the more
oh,
extreme.
over well over 10 years, until you get busier in life. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I would come home from school in the afternoons. At lunch, I'd practice. I'd come home, get all my homework done, practice, and I'd be, that's all I would be doing. My friends would go out on the weekends to party, and I never got into any of that. Never got into drugs, never got into alcohol, never been drunk in my life, don't touch a drop of alcohol. And my obsession, my addiction was music. It still is to this day.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's the key word I keep on hearing, whether it's in the interviews that I've done or just watching other greats. They always use that word obsession. There has to be like some period of
Yeah.
obsession where you're just totally immersed into it, at least for some type of phase, some type of amount of
Yeah.
years, just to really hammer in the essentials to have you grow. And then after that, then you can start kind of easing off
True.
off the accelerator a little bit, but you
Yeah.
still got to keep pushing forward. And then the composing, did that also, you mentioned you also started from a young age with the composing too, or?
Yes. Yes. And again, I was composing in many different styles, rock, jazz, but mostly classical music. Even to this day, I probably have way more classical compositions than I do of anything else. Like I'm talking thousands.
Oh
Pieces
wow,
for
okay.
classical guitar, pieces for guitar and violin, pieces for piano, string quartet, some orchestral stuff. This, but none of it. I've done nothing with it. I just have a pile of sheet music that I've got handwritten. But I'm hoping one day to actually do something with it.
And did somebody help you with the composing, or was this something you just learned on your own?
Well, again, because I was so obsessed, and even in my teens, Mozart was my inspiration. I really taught myself largely how to compose and orchestrate, studying manuscripts, but in high school I did study music, so I knew a
Okay.
little bit about counterpoint, like four voice harmonies, the role of different instruments. I played in the jazz band and the concert band in high school, so I could also see what other instruments would be doing.
And then flash forward to now, how are some of your current routines? I mean, do you still have a rigid practice schedule or time that you devote to composing, or is it day by day what you feel like?
Well, life has really taken a turn for me in the last few years. My parents are older, and unfortunately, my mother developed Alzheimer's a
Mm,
number of years ago. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I moved in with them to be her primary caregiver,
okay.
which has been the most rewarding thing, but also the most emotionally and most difficult thing I've done. Like
Draining, yeah.
it's so hard. Yeah,
Right.
it's because it involves so much. Um, you're giving your heart, and it's not something that you can really improve. It gets worse over time, and
Mm-hmm.
so your role becomes more and more sad and difficult and challenging. So now that's a big role of my life, but of course
Okay, so
I
that's
do
the
make.
priority right now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
But of
sure.
course, I do dedicate whatever free time I have to my music. And
Okay.
one of the one of the problems is, which is also a blessing, is that it seems whenever I pick up the instrument, I'm composing. So I just have so much music that I just don't know what to do with it. I've got cassette tapes of like tons and tons of ideas. I've got songs that are very close to being finished, and it's a little bit frustrating when you have all this music and you just can't keep up with it.
That's an amazing gift to have. I mean, if you feel it flowing out, because I mean, for many people, we have to search and search for ideas. But
Yeah,
if it's flowing
that's
out of you,
it's
that's
never been a
amazing.
problem for me. I don't know
Yeah.
why. It might be because when I was a young child, before I even got into guitar, I was always creative. In fact, I wanted to be an artist up until music started taking over. But when I was very young, 3 years old, 4 years, I started drawing, and I loved drawing. And so I already started, I guess, creating an environment in my mind of, just being
Creativity
creative.
and right. So up to this point in your career, what would be one of the biggest challenges that you've had that you feel you were able to overcome?
Biggest challenge.
Either whether it may be something technical on the guitar or maybe something in the terms of doing it as a full-time musician or recording. I mean, something that comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I've been pretty lucky with my career. I signed with a record company very at a pretty young age. real music out of California, and they released my first four albums, and they did a very amazing job. Back then it was CDs,
Right.
so they had a wonderful distribution network. I don't know if people remember like the Nature Store. Um, what was the other one? There's like a gadget store in the U.S. There's a big gadget store.
Radio Shack.
It's like a Radio Shack, but not Radio Shack. And
Okay.
they used to sell my CDs, and then abroad in like Asia and Europe. So
Oh,
I
nice.
had already
Yeah.
developed a very big following globally because of that.
Okay.
And then eventually I started my own record company, and I guess because of having that foundation, my career has been very steady.
Do you
So
still run your record company
I
or?
do, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
I
Okay.
mean,
I didn't.
it's not like how it used to be, because you're not
Right.
really doing CDs, which involves a lot more, the design of CDs, manufacturing, having a distribution network. Now anybody can distribute their stuff online, and it's not that challenging, really. The challenging part, of course, is just developing a following, which, as I said, I had already had built in because of my former record company.
Because of distribution in the
Yeah,
company. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it's always hard to get good gigs, you know. Um, but again, I perform as much as I want to, and I travel about as much as I can, considering my situation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really say there's too many challenges other than my focal dystonia.
How do you feel about how the world's going right now in terms of back then you said, I mean, the record company really helped you get some notoriety and get some reach, but nowadays
Yeah.
it's all basically online, having to do it yourself, do
Yeah. Well,
content and
I guess that makes it more of an even playing field, whereas before it would be a very small percentage of recording artists that were able to, get any kind of success. Now, if you understand the business, and you, let's face it, have a little bit of money to invest, and
mm-hmm.
you have the dedication to market yourself, then you can, you know, get a pretty good following, and that always translates. And of course, if you have good music,
Right.
then it translates into to listeners and streams, and you can build a good career. So in a way, it's kind of better, I would say. I know a lot of artists who are starting out might not see it that way, but if they understood the business end of things, and this is something I always say to younger musicians, that they have to understand the business end. Composing great music, being a great musician, that's really a kind of a small part of it. If you want to have a career, I mean, if you want to be a great musician, that's fine. But if you want to have a career where you're actually making a living, then you need to know the business end of things. And that takes a whole different mindset. You have to think like a businessman at that point.
I was just about to ask you what's one piece of advice you would give to the young ones in terms of getting into this as a career, but I think you just answered that one right now. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's a great
basically
point.
that.
Yeah.
Being a understanding business and studying that aspect. It's great to study the music. That's the foundation. But then once you're ready to get your music out into the world, you have to educate yourself on how to be a businessman.
I think that's one of the biggest downfalls and or drawbacks in a lot of musicians that want to do this full time and have a career in this is that there's a lot of complaining and a lot of I mean complaining about a lot of factors that are out of your control, but they don't realize that at the end of the day you have to think about it as a business and
Yeah,
we have to look outside of our industry sometimes and learn from other industries to treat it as a business
yeah,
and have that balance between the two. So yeah,
yeah.
I agree. So, what else do you have on your plate coming up? Any new recordings? Any performances or tours that are coming up? Or
Yeah.
right now, is it just a little bit more subdued right now? Or
No, funny that you should mention it. I am actually just finishing up a CD. The music might be actually ready today.
oh wow, oh okay,
Yeah,
nice.
I've been really focusing on trying to get the CD ready. And I just finished the mastering. I've done a few more tweaks on a couple of songs, so I was just working on that before we hopped on here, and I think it's sounding good. I think it's pretty much ready. I've got the artwork about 90% done. So, I mean, I'm probably not going to, I don't know where you release it now in store. So I'm not really focusing on that. It's just going to be
Yeah,
essentially available on my website and at my performances. And I do have a couple performances coming up, but they're in Canada.
Okay.
One in Burlington and one in Toronto, and that's going to be the end of October and the beginning of November. And then I'm going to be on a little bit of hiatus, hopefully travel a little bit, and then obviously still work on new music. And yeah.
In terms of your recording, I was curious too. Do you self-produce and do the recordings through your own studio, or do you work at through a different studio, or work with any producers outside of beyond yourself?
Yeah. No, I do everything myself. So I have my home studio.
Okay.
I have some good quality gear, some nice mics,
Yeah.
and some good preamps. And after all these years, I think I'm kind of figuring how to make
Well,
things sound good.
the recordings sound phenomenal, the quality and the production of it. So that's why I was curious. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to have someone else, a few different companies do the mastering, but
Okay.
the last few albums I've been mastering myself, mostly because maybe like 5 albums ago, there was a big catastrophe. They sent me 2 discs of master discs completed, and I listened to them. And then they sent me 2 more, so I thought they were all the same. Ended up taking a faulty one to the manufacturing plant. I
Ooh.
got something like 7,000 printed, and it was bad. It was a
And
bad
that wasn't the final. Oh,
no. So it was an absolute disaster.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah, there was
that's.
a glitch on one of the CDs. Just one of the songs had a glitch.
Did you have to dump them, or did you go with it?
No, I had to dump it.
You had to dump it, was bad. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
that was very costly.
Yeah.
So after that, I thought, you know what? I'm the type of person who likes to be hands-on and kind of believe that it's not going to get done right unless you do it yourself. That's not always the case, but in this case, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try do the mastering myself. So I researched
Okay.
how to do it and got some good plugins and some outboard gear. And yeah, so I think I'm doing a
What
pretty good job with it.
nice. When you mentioned the artwork, it sounded like you meant you sounded like you're also doing that yourself, or no? Or did I
I
misunderstand?
have done that. I mean, usually if it's just a single, I'll have some photographs that were taken of me, usually in the Dominican Republic, and then I'll just add a song title or
Right.
the single title and my name on it.
Yeah.
So not that big of a deal. But in this case, I do have somebody who's designing the whole thing for me.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hey, one question I forgot to ask you a little earlier is what do you define what label do you put on the genre of the music that you do? Because that's one of the questions that I always run into, like some different avenues with different artists. What
Yeah.
do we call this style of music? I generally just throw on a general label of Spanish guitar or contemporary Spanish guitar when it's a blend of Latin and rumba
Yeah.
flamenca. But I was just curious, what do you call it? Because I'm not sure
Yeah.
what to.
So, well, back in the day, when CDs were more of a thing, and especially when I was with the record company, they released it as New Age. Which
Right, I know
I
for
thought,
a
well,
period they used to call it that.
yeah, I mean, maybe some of my ballads, the slower songs, are kind of New Age. And I am kind of into new agey things. Like I'm a certified yoga instructor. I meditate and Reiki master, things like that. So I am into the kind of new agey kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I guess nowadays I call it either guitarra latina or just Latin guitar, Spanish guitar.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
or world music if for a
Or
broader.
world music if you
Yeah.
need. Okay, gotcha. Lastly, like I told you, my partner Steve Edwards from Guitarra Azul, he's always speaking highly of you. So hopefully one day we get to collaborate and do a concert together or do a couple
Yes.
songs. That would be
That'd be
amazing. So
fantastic. Yeah, I love Steve. He's a great guy. I met him a few years ago in Chicago.
yeah, he mentioned you guys had a bite to eat together and got to
Yeah,
hang
he's
out for
he's
a
a
little
lot of
bit.
fun
So yeah.
and very talented too.
Yeah, he's an amazing player,
Yeah,
also great composer as well. So I'm
yeah,
privileged to be able to play along with them as well. So
right.
we just finished. We're finishing off our last album as well. Now that you mentioned yours, yeah, we've been in the studio recording, pretty much almost done. He's throwing on the final touches. I just finished my last session as well, so
Amazing.
we're looking forward to that as well. So
Very cool.
Johannes, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang with me and just to talk a little bit about your journey. It was really interesting to hear a little bit about your backstory, and I'm sure a lot of people that follow you will find this interesting as well. So appreciate everything.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, David.
All right. Well, I will see you in the future. Hopefully we get to play together and talk soon.
Sounds
And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next podcast. Peace.